It's a clear night. You grab your camera equipment and you go down to your favorite dark location. There's no moon that night. There's not a lot of light pollution, if any. And you use the camera settings that you've used in the past that have worked great in getting very bright, vibrant stars and Milky Way. But you get home and you look at the image and you think to yourself, this does not look how I expected. It's really not that great. Well, what happened? You had the clear skies. You did everything right. What did you miss out on? Well, there's some additional information that you could have potentially taken into account before you went out that might have informed you that this was going to happen. In this video, I'm going to tell you about that and how to read that information and what it means for your photography. When most of us are planning our night photography shoots, we're taking into account several different conditions. It's probably more than you're really aware of. First off, obviously, is we're thinking about the weather. We're looking at 2 or 3 different weather apps. Typically, we're thinking about the light pollution in a particular area. We're also thinking about how the Milky Way may drop behind the subject. We're thinking about, is it the right time of year? Is it too early or too late in the evening? But despite checking off all of those boxes, there is still an opportunity for a lot of interference between your camera and the starlight trying to reach it. And for this, we're going to refer to our friends in the deep sky astronomy community who are familiar with 2 terms that landscape photographers should also be familiar with. And those 2 terms are transparency and seeing. In this video, I'm going to briefly define both terms, talk about the impact of each of them on your photography, and share with you an app that I use that helps me make a decision as to whether or not I want to go out on that clear night. Let's start with transparency. So in the simplest of terms, transparency is how clear the sky actually is. What is between the starlight and you that could create some sort of interference that would cause that starlight to be either scattered or absorbed. Good transparency means there's little to no haze, humidity, smoke, or thin cloud layers. On nights like this, stars look bold, plentiful, and the Milky Way core really glows with contrast. Your camera will always see more than your eyes, but there's no mistaking a crisp, transparent night. Poor transparency, on the other hand, often comes from high humidity, dust, wildfire smoke like we get here on Cape Cod, or just pollution in general. Even if the sky looks clear to your eyes, poor transparency can flatten contrast and obscure faint details, making your photos look somewhat washed out or potentially murky. Next up is seeing. So seeing refers to atmospheric stability, how much air is moving around and potentially distorting the starlight that you're seeing coming from above. Good seeing means steady air. Stars appear sharp and you won't see much twinkling. Poor seeing causes stars to twinkle wildly and even appear bloated, especially when you're zoomed in. Imagine you're looking through several layers of air at different temperatures and densities to see that starlight. That shimmering you might see above a campfire as hot air is expelled, it's kind of the same effect. In astrophotography, poor seeing mostly affects telescopic or zoomed in shots, but it still influences overall sharpness, especially in long exposures or when stacking frames. Now, here's an interesting little side note. Stars twinkle, but planets don't, and here's why. A star is so far away from us that it appears as a single point of light. So when it hits our atmosphere and the atmosphere is turbulent, it will appear to flicker or move, which we define as twinkling. Planets are a lot closer and appear to us as more of a disk, a wider disk shape. So as a result of that wide form, the distortions get averaged out, meaning they look a lot more stable to our eyes. This also means that if you're trying to evaluate whether or not you have a good night of seeing, don't look at a planet because you're not going to get a true assessment of what's actually going on. Let's talk real world impact. So now you know that seeing and transparency as a concept is very important in determining whether or not the skies that you think are clear are actually clear. And it gives you a little bit of insight beyond the standard weather app information that you're frequently getting. But there's also a very easy way visually to determine or at least assess how things are going to look from the location you are shooting. And that is simply by looking at the horizon. So I frequently photograph along the beach out towards the ocean. I get a nice clear view, straight line of the horizon all the way down to 0 degrees. Ask yourself when you're looking, at what point above that horizon do stars begin to appear? The lower those stars, the better your transparency in seeing. Why? Because when you look straight up, directly over your head at the zenith, you're looking through around 60 miles of atmosphere. That's the shortest, clearest path to space. This is also known as a single air mass. At 30 degrees above the horizon, you're looking through about twice that, or 2 air masses. At 10 degrees above the horizon, it's 5 to 6 air masses. And at the horizon, you're looking through a whopping 10 to 12 air masses. That's over 600 miles between your eyes and starlight entering the atmosphere, and that's a lot of opportunity for things to get in the way. That's also a great way to tell whether or not somebody has aggressively replaced sky in one of their social media shots. You should never have brilliant, bright stars all the way down to a flat horizon, whether that's in the middle of nowhere or out near the ocean. And this is because Earth has an atmosphere. And unless it was photographed on an asteroid, which I'm pretty sure it wasn't, this is sky replacement. Now I'm going to introduce you to the app that I use, and it's called Astrospheric. It's a free app available on Android, iOS, and via a web browser at astrospheric.com. And I know at first glance it may look a little bit overly technical, but once you know where to look for the conditions that I've mentioned in this video, it's actually quite simple. And it's full of other information that you may be interested in, including the KP, sunset, moonrise, and even humidity and dew point conditions. Right below the forecast map, you'll see a timeline for each night, broken down by hour. There are 3 key rows to pay attention to. Row number 1 is cloud cover. Row number 2 is transparency, and row number 3 is seeing. Each block under those rows is color-coded. Dark blue means great. White means poor, and everything else in between is, well, in between. Ideally for Milky Way shooting, you want dark blue across all 3, cloud cover, transparency, and seeing, during the hours you plan to shoot. Here on Cape Cod, or in other humid areas, you might see a blue block for cloud cover, but white or pale blocks for transparency and seeing. That means the skies may look clear, but the shots won't be their best. So, should you still go out? Well, it depends. If this is your only opportunity to go out and get that night sky, maybe you're on vacation and you can't come back to this location anytime soon, or there's worse weather coming in, go out and get that shot. Work with what you got. And remember, just getting outside and enjoying the night sky, even with your own eyes, is certainly a win. That's how it works for me. If I happen to get a photo out of it in the end, that's the bonus. But if you see better conditions coming and you can get back to that location, you may want to wait for bluer boxes to appear on that app because you will get a better photo. I hope this video helped demystify some of these invisible forces that may be sabotaging your Milky Way shots or creating some degree of mystery as to why you didn't quite get the image you were looking for. If you've used Astrospheric before and you love it, or you're using another app and love that, please let me know in the comments. There are so many apps out there, and you may have one that you like better that you could potentially share with other people. If you're considering going out on a nighttime adventure with your camera, check out my website, capecodworkshops.com, for event and tour information. I appreciate you watching this video. While YouTube is a lot of work, it's not a job for me. So the only button I'm really worried about you smashing after watching this video is the shutter release button on your camera when you're getting that amazing Milky Way shot using the information I gave you today. Take care, and I'll see you out there after dark.